At 7:59 a.m., industrialist Arthur Kensington held a pen worth more than a small house, poised to sign away his entire 10 billion conglomerate. He was ruined, defeated. The squadron of elite attorneys from Blackwood and Thorne and his loyal chief operating officer, Marcus Vance, watched him, their expressions bleak. The documents before him signified his complete collapse, the termination of the Kensington legacy. But Arthur wasn't focused on the papers. He was gazing at the woman in the faded smock standing next to him. The counter server, who just 2 hours earlier had poured his final complimentary coffee and highlighted a single clause in the 400-page agreement. A clause that wasn't merely an error, it was a $300 million deceit. The timepiece on the wall of the Lighthouse Cafe indicated 4:03 a.m. The L in Lighthouse had sputtered and expired 6 months prior, leaving the establishment to be perpetually known as the Lighthouse Cafe. It was a fittingly damaged name for a venue specializing in catering to the broken, the weary, and the forgotten souls of Zenith City. At an hour when civilized society was asleep, Alara Davies was firmly in the weary category. She scrubbed the laminate countertop for the 11th time that shift, the sharp antiseptic scent doing little to conceal the lingering smell of burnt coffee and old cooking oil. Each circular pass of her cloth felt like another second of her existence being polished away. 3 years ago, Alara Davies wasn't scrubbing counters. She was a senior associate at BDO Global, one of the top 4 assurance firms specializing in forensic accounting. She was the one they called in when a company's figures didn't just seem incorrect. They felt sinister. She hunted phantoms in ledgers, tracing imaginary assets and manufactured liabilities from downtown high-rises to murky holding companies in Belize and Malta. She possessed a knack for discerning the narrative in the digits, the human greed concealed behind the decimal points. Then life did what it does best. It pulled the foundation out. Her father, her sole living relative, received a devastating diagnosis, a rare, virulent form of motor neuron disease. The insurance coverage ran out. The experimental therapies were astronomically costly. Alara's 6-figure salary, once a badge of her achievement, became tissue paper against a conflagration of medical debt. She liquidated her holdings, her retirement fund, her apartment. And when that wasn't enough, she had to locate employment that paid cash nightly. The high-stress, 80-hour-a-week realm of forensic accounting didn't permit the flexibility she required to be a part-time caretaker. So she'd swapped her power suits for a polyester uniform and her calculator for a coffee carafe. Now her gratuities were the only thing sustaining her father in a respectable care facility. A sharp metallic clang jarred her, the bell above the diner's entryway. A man stumbled in, looking less like he was entering and more like he was being propelled by an invisible mass. He wasn't one of the cafe's typical clientele, not a taxi driver, not a beat cop, not a drunken student. He was expensive, even disheveled, you could tell. His wool topcoat was custom tailored, likely a premium brand thrown on over a silk sweater that probably cost more than Alara's monthly rent. But it was his face that captured her attention. It was the color of ancient parchment. His eyes, a deep, penetrating gray, were sunken with dark rings beneath them, attesting to a profound and sleepless terror. He looked like a monarch who had just witnessed his realm incinerated. This was Arthur Kensington. Alara didn't recognize him, not precisely. She no longer kept up with the financial news. To her, he was merely table 5. He collapsed into the booth near the window, the vinyl protesting. He tossed a weighty, leather-bound portfolio binder onto the table. It landed with a dull, conclusive thud. "Coffee," he croaked, not looking at her. "Black." "Coming right up," Alara said, her voice robotic with exhaustion. She returned with a thick ceramic mug and a pot of the diner's notoriously harsh brew. He didn't acknowledge her. He had already opened the binder. His hand, which wore a heavy gold crest ring, was trembling, not a slight tremor, but a violent, uncontrollable quake. Alara retreated behind the counter, pretending to replenish sugar dispensers. She was a professional observer, a habit she couldn't break. The man at table 5 was disintegrating. He stared at the pages, but his eyes weren't reading. He was just gazing. He'd pick up a pen, a sleek silver cross, hover it over a line, then slam it down, whispering a curse into his empty mug. His phone, a cutting-edge smartphone, vibrated ceaselessly on the table. the screen illuminated with the identical name repeatedly, Marcus Vance. After the 10th buzz, the man snatched the phone. But Igusha, what? Marcus? What else could you possibly want? To confirm I'm ruined? Yes, I'm ruined. Are you satisfied? His voice was a low snarl, but it carried in the empty diner. Ilara froze. No, I haven't signed them. I'm examining them now. Yes, I know the meeting is at 8:00 a.m. I know the creditors will be present. I know Blackwood and Thorne are waiting. You don't need to remind me that this is the end of Kensington Global. I was there when my mother built it. A long silence. The man's face seemed to crumple. Just leave me alone. I'll be there. I'll sign the damn documents. He terminated the call and flung the phone onto the seat opposite him. He covered his face with his hands, his broad shoulders shaking. Alara felt a stab of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Professional curiosity wrapped in a layer of human sympathy. Kensington Global. She knew that name. A massive conglomerate. Logistics, robotics, private equity. They were a leviathan, and this man was its king, about to be overthrown. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers. They were bloodshot and frantic. What are you looking at? He snapped. Nothing, sir, Alara said, turning away. Just looks like you're having a long night. You have no idea, he mumbled, returning to his coffee. He gestured toward the menu. Give me, I don't know, waffles. The cheapest thing you have. A last meal. Ilara nodded, submitting the order. As she worked the griddle, she couldn't shake the image of the man in his binder. Bankruptcy. It was a brutal, formalized death. The documents he was reviewing would be the final signature packet, a compilation of schedules, asset declarations, and creditor lists. She brought him the waffles. He barely looked at them. He was staring at one page in particular, his finger tracing a column of names. This is it, he whispered to himself, his voice thick with a terrifying mix of fury and resignation. This is the one that broke the camel's back. He signaled for more coffee. Ilara approached the table, carafe in hand. It was now 5:15 a.m. The city outside was still dark, but the first hints of a cold, unforgiving blue were bruising the horizon. The 8:00 a.m. deadline was approaching like a guillotine. As she leaned over to pour, her sleeve, damp from the sink, brushed against the edge of the binder. It was a clumsy, exhausted motion. At the same instant, Arthur flinched at a sudden noise from the kitchen. The combination was disastrous. The heavy ceramic mug tipped. Hot black coffee flooded across the table, a dark tide surging directly toward the priceless, execution-ready bankruptcy documents. No, you idiot! Arthur roared, leaping to his feet. I'm so sorry! I'm so sorry! Alara gasped, grabbing a wad of napkins from the dispenser. She lunged forward, trying to shield the papers. She was too late. The coffee soaked the edge of the binder, staining the thick cardstock. But her hand, moving rapidly, had covered the most crucial page. She began dabbing frantically at the pool of liquid, her heart pounding against her ribs, expecting him to fire her, or worse. Get away from it, he yelled. You probably ruined it. They'll need new copies. It'll delay everything. I'm trying to dry it, sir, Alara insisted, her hands moving with precision, dabbing at the ink. And that's when she saw it. Her eyes, trained by years of scanning spreadsheets for a single anomalous digit, locked onto a name on the page she was blotting. It was Schedule F, creditors holding unsecured non-priority claims. It was a lengthy list, but one entry near the top leapt out at her. Crimson Tide Investments, LLC. Claim amount, $300,000. Alara's blood didn't just run cold. It froze solid. Her hands stopped moving. The napkin soaked in coffee was held suspended an inch above the paper. What? Arthur spat, mistaking her pause for incompetence. What is it now? Did the ink run? Ilara didn't hear him. She was no longer in the Ight House Cafe. She was back in her office at BDO Global 3 years ago, 2:00 a.m., buried under a mountain of data from a different client, a mid-tier logistics firm called Starlight Shipping. She was staring at a screen at a wire transfer to a newly formed shell corporation, a company she had flagged for fraud, a company whose ultimate beneficiary she could never, ever find, a company named Crimson Tide Investments. She looked up from the paper, her eyes wide, and met Arthur Kensington's furious gaze. "Sir," she whispered, her voice shaking, "where did this creditor come from?" Arthur Kensington stared at the counter server as if she had just sprouted a second head. His mind, already fragmented by stress and lack of sleep, couldn't process the question. "What?" he snarled, snatching the document from under her hand. He inspected the page. The coffee had barely touched the text thanks to her swift action, but a dark brown stain was blooming on the margin. "What did you say?" "That name," Alara said, pointing with a trembling finger. "Crimson Tide Investments. The $300 million claim. It's not real." A thick, dangerous silence filled the diner. The only sound was the hum of the fluorescent lights. Arthur let out a short, barking laugh. It was a terrible, broken sound. "It's not real, lady. It's the thing that's real. It's the $300 million unregistered bond note that triggered the covenant breach. It's the debt that sank me. It's the most real thing in my life. It's the bullet in my head." And my COO, Marcus Vance, confirmed it's ironclad. The name Marcus Vance struck Alara like a second lightning bolt. Marcus Vance. The pieces clicked into place with a terrifying, sickening logic. Of course, it would be him. Arthur's frustration evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp suspicion. He stepped back from the table, appraising her for the first time. The cheap uniform, the exhaustion, the faint smell of bleach. "Who are you?" "My name is Alara Davies," she said, her voice gaining strength. The fog of her shift was burning away, replaced by the white-hot adrenaline of the hunt. And 3 years ago, I was the lead forensic auditor on the Starlight shipping account for BDO Global. I spent 2 years chasing a phantom, a shell company that was used to siphon $40 million from Starlight's capital reserves. She tapped the paper. That phantom was Crimson Tide Investments. It's a sham, a mailbox in the Cayman Islands with a registered agent and a lawyer on retainer. It has no assets, no employees. It's a vehicle for fraud. Arthur's face was a mask of disbelief. "That's impossible. My legal team, my entire C-suite, they vetted this. This bond note surfaced 3 months ago. It was bearer bond paper stock, supposedly from an old acquisition my father made, which this Crimson Tide bought as part of a distressed portfolio. It's legitimate." "It's not," Alara insisted, her eyes blazing. "It's a fabrication. A brilliant one, but a fabrication. The $300 million isn't a debt you owe. It's a theft you suffered. And you're about to sign a document legitimizing that theft as a debt, bankrupting your own company and letting the thief walk away clean." Arthur sank back into the booth, his legs suddenly weak. "You're telling me that the centerpiece of my bankruptcy is a lie?" "Yes, and you said the name Marcus Vance." Alara leaned in, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "When I was investigating Crimson Tide at Starlight, I hit a brick wall. The records were sealed, the beneficiary hidden behind layers of corporate proxies. But I knew it was an inside job. I presented my findings to the board. 2 days later, I was pulled off the case. The man who replaced me on the audit, the man who signed off and said my findings were inconclusive, was a senior partner from a rival firm brought in to clean up. His name was Marcus Vance." Arthur's blood pressure spiked. He could feel a roaring in his ears. "Marcus? No, impossible. He's been with me for 10 years. He's my most trusted advisor. He's the one who found the bond note. He brought it to me. He looked devastated." "He's a very good actor," Alara said grimly. "Think about it, sir. He finds the mystery debt. He confirms it's ironclad. He advises you that the only option is a structured Chapter 11. He's not your advisor. He's your executioner. He created the debt, and now he's managing your company's death." Arthur was breathing heavily. "But why? Why would he do this? He's paid millions. He has stock. If the company goes down, he goes down." "Does he?" Alara challenged. "Or does he get a golden parachute for loyally managing a difficult transition? Or more likely, is a competitor waiting in the wings who's the lead bidder on your assets, who's waiting to pick the bones clean?" Arthur's mind flashed to the vultures who had been circling. The most aggressive bidder, the one Marcus had been pushing him to negotiate with for a pre-packaged bankruptcy. Apex Strategy Capital, Arthur whispered. They've been relentless. Marcus said they're the only ones offering a fair price for the core assets, Alara said. And I'd be willing to bet that Apex Strategy Capital has already promised Marcus Vance the CEO position of the new restructured company, plus a signing bonus that just so happens to be a fraction of $300 million. The scenario played out in Arthur's mind. A perfect, horrifyingly elegant crime. Marcus creates a $300 million phantom debt payable to his own shell company. The debt triggers a default. Kensington Global is forced into bankruptcy. Marcus, the loyal COO, manages the sale of assets to a predetermined buyer, Apex Strategy. Once the company is dissolved, the bankruptcy court pays the creditors. Marcus, as Crimson Tide Investments, gets $300 million in cash from the sale. Then he gets the CEO job at the new company. He wasn't just sinking the ship. He was stealing the gold, selling the salvaged wreck, and getting promoted to captain of the new vessel. Arthur Kensington looked at the clock. 5:48 a.m. The meeting is at 8 o'clock a.m., he said, his voice flat. The one where I signed this. He tapped the binder. At my office, Marcus will be there. The lawyers from Blackwood and Thorne, the creditors committee, the representatives from Apex Strategy. They're all in the same room, Alara said. How convenient. If I accuse him, he'll deny it, Arthur said, thinking aloud. It's my word against his. This Crimson Tide company, he's covered his tracks. You said it yourself. He covered his tracks then, Alara said, but he just committed a $300 million fraud. He's arrogant. He's using the same shell company. He thinks he's already won. He's gotten lazy. He's left a trail. How do we find it? Arthur asked. He was no longer speaking to a waitress. He was speaking to an auditor. How do we find it in 2 hours? Alara's mind went into overdrive. The fatigue, the diner, her aching feet, it all vanished. She was back. I can't prove it from here, she said. I don't have my tools, but you have your phone and you have access. You need to make a call, not to anyone at your company, not to Marcus, not to your lawyers. They're compromised, or at least they're working for the company which Marcus is running into the ground. Do you have a personal assistant? Someone loyal only to you? Arthur nodded. Diana, she's been with me for 20 years. She's not at the office. She works from her home. Call her, wake her up. You need her to access the company servers remotely and silently. No login trail that Marcus's IT team can see. Can she do that? She can. Good, Alara said. She grabbed a fresh napkin and Arthur's silver pen. You need 2 things. First, you need the original wire transfer instruction for that debt, not the summary. The original instruction, Marcus will have logged it as acquisition of historical debt or something. You need the SWIFT message. Tell her to look for the beneficiary bank. What am I looking for? Arthur asked, dialing. It won't be a major bank. It won't be Bank of America or Chase. It'll be a small offshore bank, probably in Cyprus or Malta. I need the name of the bank and the account number. Arthur barked orders into the phone. Diana, wake up. I need you. This is level 0, no questions. Alara continued. Second, while she's looking for that, you need her to pull Marcus Vance's personal travel logs and expense reports for the last 6 months. Specifically, you're looking for any travel to Cyprus, Malta, the Caymans, or even Switzerland. He's arrogant, but he's not stupid. He wouldn't have gone himself. He would have used a proxy. So you're also looking for any unusual consulting fees paid out of his discretionary budget. A single large payment, probably to a law firm. A law firm? He needs a local agent to move the money. Someone to be the face of Crimson Tide. He'd have hired a lawyer in Nicosia or Valletta to represent the company. He'd have paid that lawyer. The expense report will have the name. Arthur relayed the instructions. Alara, what if he didn't use company funds? What if he paid this proxy himself? He's too greedy, Alara said with certainty. Why would he use his own money when he could use yours? He'd hide it as a due diligence fee or transactional consulting. It'll be there, I promise you. Arthur hung up. He and Alara stared at each other in the harsh diner light. The morning commuters were starting to trickle in, ordering toast and coffee. oblivious to the $10 billion corporate war being plotted at table 5. Now what? Arthur asked. Now, Alara said, refilling his coffee mug, her hand perfectly steady this time. You drink your coffee. We have about 45 minutes before your life changes. And sir? What? You should probably eat those waffles. You're going to need the energy. The minutes that followed were the longest of Arthur Kensington's life. The quiet diner transformed into a pressure cooker. Every clatter of a plate, every new customer walking through the door made him jump. He sat, phone flat on the table, staring at it, willing it to ring. Alara, by contrast, was a picture of unnerving calm. She went about her duties, taking orders, delivering eggs, and wiping counters. But her eyes never left Arthur. She was a sentry guarding the last stand of his empire. Every few minutes she'd walk by and say quietly, "She'll find it. Arrogant men always leave a trail." At 6:37 a.m., the phone vibrated, a harsh buzz on the laminate. Arthur snatched it. "Diana, talk to me." He put the call on speaker. Diana's voice was high-pitched, vibrating with nervous energy. "Arthur, I'm in. I had to use a back door from the old M&A crisis servers. But Marcus's team can't see me. I found the transaction. It's exactly like the server said." Alara moved closer, wiping down the table next to them. "The wire," Arthur pressed. "The bank." "It's not a major bank," Diana said, her voice trembling. "The Swift message routes the $300 million payment for the Crimson Tide note to an account at the Bank of Valletta in Malta." Alara closed her eyes and nodded once. "Gotcha. And the account name?" "It's just listed as Crimson Tide Investments, LLC, Diana replied. "That's the trap," Alara said. "He wants you to think the company itself is the beneficiary, but he needed a person to open that account. The bank needs a human signatory. That's the proxy." "Diana, did you find the expense reports?" "Yes," Diana said, the sound of frantic typing coming through the phone. "I'm in his T&E reports. He's been clean. No, wait. He didn't travel, but he did expense a consulting fee 3 months ago, the same week the Crimson Tide bond note surfaced." "How much?" Arthur asked. 75,000 paid to a law firm." Alara finished for her. "Yes," Diana confirmed. "Constantinu and Sons legal counsel, based in Valletta, Malta." "Checkmate," Alara said, unable to keep the triumph from her voice. "That's him. That's the proxy. That law firm is the signatory on the Crimson Tide bank account. Marcus paid them 75,000 to act as the representative of the shell company to receive the 300 million and then, at his command, to wire it to his real offshore account, probably in a different jurisdiction, completely untraceable back to him." Arthur put his head in his hands. "He did it. The son of a... He really did it." "He did," Alara said. "And now we have the trail, the wire to a ghost company, the payment to the proxy law firm. The man who discovered the debt is the same man who paid the beneficiaries." It's circumstantial," Arthur said, doubt creeping back in. "The lawyers at Blackwood and Thorne will tear this apart. They'll say the 75,000 was a real consulting fee for legitimate due diligence on the very bond note he found. He'll say he was just being thorough. He'll use our own money to create a paper trail that supports his story." Alara frowned. He was right. It was a strong trail, but it wasn't a smoking gun. Marcus would have an answer for everything. They were still missing the final undeniable link, the link between Marcus and Crimson Tide. "She's right, Arthur," Diana said. "It's not enough. It's just suspicious. It's not proof." Arthur looked at Alara, his eyes filled with a new, crushing despair. "We're close, but we're not there. In 1 hour, I either sign or they force a Chapter 7 liquidation. I lose everything anyway. Marcus wins." Alara's mind raced. What was she missing? The name, Crimson Tide. Why that name? "Crimson Tide," she said aloud. "It's an unusual name. Nautical. It's arrogant. Like him. Why did he use it? He used it at Starlight. Why? It must mean something to him." "It's a company, Alara," Arthur said, his patience fraying. "It's just a name." "No," Alara insisted. "Forensic accounting isn't just numbers. It's psychology. Thieves are human. They make mistakes. They have egos. They leave tells. He reused the name because he was proud of it. Because he got away with it before. It's his signature. Crimson Tide. Crimson Tide. Diana on the server. Can you do a deep search? A keyword search of Marcus's entire drive, personal folders, archived emails, everything. Search for Crimson Tide. Arthur, that's highly illegal, Diana whispered. That's his personal data. Do it, Arthur commanded. The next 5 minutes were agonizing. The diner speakers, which had been playing soft jazz, suddenly switched to a peppy, upbeat pop song that felt like a cruel joke. I'm searching, Diana said. Nothing in his active directories, nothing in his email. He's too smart. He'd never type it. Wait, what? Arthur and Alara said in unison. There's a hidden partition on his cloud drive. It's password protected. But oh, that's sloppy. He used the same admin password for his main drive. I'm in. The line was silent for a count of 10. Oh my God, Diana breathed. What? Arthur shouted, causing a nearby customer to glare at him. It's not a document. It's a folder of photos from college, a rowing team, the boat. The name of the boat is the Crimson Tide. Alara slammed her hand on the counter, rattling the coffee cups. That's it. That's the ego. That's the link. But it's still not fraud. Keep digging, Diana. In that folder, it's mostly pictures. Him and some friends drinking. Wait, there's a file, not a photo, a PDF scanned. It's old. It's a college application essay. What? Arthur said, confused. It's his application essay to Stanford. The prompt is, describe a formative experience. He wrote, oh, Arthur. He wrote about his rowing team. He wrote about how his father's company sponsored their boat, the Crimson Tide, and how he learned to navigate complex systems by creating a separate, off-book entity to manage the team's travel expenses, hiding it from the university's financial oversight. Ilara's jaw dropped. He's describing fraud. He's describing, step by step, the creation of a shell company as his college essay. There's more, Diana said, her voice faint. He attached the original incorporation document for the rowing team's shell company to brag about it. The company he created in college, Arthur, the name of the company was Crimson Acquisitions, LLC. The diner, the city, the world, it all went silent. Arthur Kensington was holding a confession, a 20-year-old document hidden in a personal folder that tied his COO, Marcus Vance, directly to the original creation of the very shell company that was now bankrupting him. Marcus hadn't just reused a name he liked. He had reused the entire corporate structure, the one he'd built as a smug college kid, the one he'd used at Starlight, and now the one he was using for his $300 million masterpiece. Diana, Arthur said, his voice now dangerously calm, the voice of a king who had just found his sword. Email that PDF to my personal account now. Then call the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. Get me to the head of the White-Collar Crime Division. Tell them Arthur Kensington has a whistleblower and definitive proof of a $300 million wire fraud, and I'm handing them the man responsible in 1 hour. Yes, Arthur. And Diana, one more call. Call my personal security team. Not the building guys, my guys. Tell them I want them on the 40th floor in the lobby. Plain clothes, and they are not to let anyone leave the boardroom until I say so. He hung up. The clock read 7:15 a.m. He looked at Alara. She was just a woman in a cheap uniform, her hair in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes, and she had just saved his life. I have to finish my shift, Alara stammered, and the adrenaline beginning to fade, the reality of her own life rushing back in. My rent is due. Arthur let out a sound. It might have been a laugh. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a thick black card, an American Express Centurion. He flagged down the other waitress, a woman named Flo. Miss, Arthur said, I need to buy your colleague. Flo looked confused. Sir, this woman, he said, pointing to Alara, her shift. I'm buying it in the diner for the next hour. Whatever it costs. He looked at Alara. You're not finishing your shift. You're not a waitress anymore. You're my new interim chief financial officer. He threw a crumpled $1,000 bill onto the counter for the coffee and the waffles. They were terrible. Alara stood frozen, her mind reeling. Get your coat, Miss Davies, Arthur said, buttoning his own. The broken man was gone. In his place was a titan. "We have a meeting to attend." The elevators at Kensington Tower were silent, glass and steel capsules that rocketed upwards with sickening, soundless speed. Alara Davies stood in the corner, her own reflection staring back at her. She was still in her counter-server uniform. Black polyester pants, sensible non-slip shoes, and a white polo shirt with the Ight House Cafe stitched on the breast, now sporting a faint coffee stain. Her apron was bunched up in her coat pocket. Beside her, Arthur Kensington looked like he had been reborn in steel. He had spent 10 minutes in his private penthouse bathroom, emerging with his face washed, hair combed, in a fresh, dark navy suit. The contrast between them was beyond stark. It was comical. Alara's hands were shaking again. "Mr. Kensington, Arthur, I can't go in there. I'm a waitress. They won't listen to me. I should just go. You have the proof." Arthur looked at her, his gray eyes intense. "First, you are not a waitress. You're the best auditor I've ever met. Second, I don't just have the proof. I have the whistleblower. They need to see the person who uncovered this. They need to see you. And Marcus, he needs to see you." The elevator doors chimed and opened onto the 40th floor. The silence here was different from the elevator. It was thick, carpeted, and smelled of money and lemon oil polish. A severe receptionist at a massive marble desk looked up, her eyes flicking to Alara with unconcealed disdain. "Mr. Kensington, you're late. Mr. Vance is already with the creditors. They're in the main boardroom." "Thank you, Cynthia," Arthur said dismissively. He gestured down the hall. In front of the 20-foot-tall mahogany doors of the main boardroom, two large men in ill-fitting suits stood. Arthur's personal security. They nodded at him. He nodded back. "Let's go," he said to Alara. He pushed the doors open. The room was vast. A 50-foot table of polished redwood dominated the center. At the far end, with a panoramic view of the city behind him, sat Marcus Vance. He was the picture of success, perfectly tailored suit, a sympathetic, somber expression on his handsome face. He was flanked by a team of lawyers from Blackwood and Thorne. Lining the sides of the table were the other parties. A humorless woman and two men representing the creditors' committee, and a slick, smiling man Alara instantly recognized as the face of Apex Strategy Capital, Lawrence Shaw. All heads turned as Arthur entered. A ripple of annoyance went through the room. He was late. Then they saw Alara. Marcus Vance's practiced, somber expression faltered. He smirked. "Arthur, you're late, and you've brought breakfast." The lawyer from Apex Strategy chuckled. "Something like that, Marcus," Arthur said, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. He walked to his own chair at the head of the table, but he didn't sit. He gestured for Alara to stand beside him. She did, her heart feeling like it would burst from her chest. She was a diner waitress, about to accuse one of the most powerful men in Zenith City of high-level fraud in front of the people who stood to profit from it. "Marcus, this is Ms. Alara Davies," Arthur said. "She'll be taking the minutes." This was their plan: underestimate, keep her hidden in plain sight. Marcus waved a dismissive hand. "Whatever. Arthur, we are on a schedule. The U.S. trustee is breathing down our necks. We need to sign. The Chapter 11 filing is time-stamped for 9:00 a.m. We need your signature on the declaration pages." He pushed the heavy binder, a fresh, unstained copy, down the table. "Page 400. Signature. Let's end this." Arthur looked at the binder. He looked at Marcus. "It's a sad day, Marcus," Arthur said, his voice laced with a new cold irony. "The end of an empire, all because of that one killer debt." "Yes," Marcus said, his voice oozing false sympathy. "The Crimson Tide note, tragic. An unsecured bond from your mother's time. A ticking time bomb. I'm just glad I was able to identify it before it did more damage." "You did identify it, Marcus," Arthur said. "You identified the hell out of it. You were so thorough. You even found that consulting firm in Malta, Constantino and Sons, to verify its authenticity. That was diligent." Alara watched Marcus. His smile didn't waver, but a small muscle in his jaw ticked. He was surprised Arthur knew the name of the law firm. "As I said, Arthur," Marcus replied smoothly, We had to be thorough, the creditors committee insisted. The humorless woman from the committee nodded. We reviewed Mr. Vance's due diligence. It was exemplary. Exemplary, my son, Arthur mused. That's the word for it. In fact, Marcus, you're so good at this, I'm almost starting to think you created it. The air in the room became solid. The lawyers from Blackwood and Thorne sat up, sensing a change. Lawrence Shaw of Apex Strategy stopped smiling. Marcus laughed a little too loud. Arthur, you're stressed. You're not thinking clearly. That's a wild, damaging accusation. You're on the verge of a breakdown. Am I? Arthur said. I feel for the first time in a year perfectly clear. He turned to Alara. Ms. Davies, you're an auditor. What do you think of this Crimson Tide Investments? Marcus's eyes narrowed. What is this, Arthur? Who is this woman? She's my coffee girl, Arthur said. And she's also the forensic auditor from BDO Global who tracked Crimson Tide Investments when you used it to defraud Starlight Shipping 3 years ago. The color drained from Marcus Vance's face. He didn't just go pale. He went the color of ash. He stared at Alara, his mind frantically trying to place her. Alara stepped forward. Her voice was no longer a whisper. It was clear and sharp, cutting through the billion-dollar boardroom. You don't remember me, Mr. Vance. I was just a senior associate. But I remember you. You're the one who buried my report. And you're sloppy. You used the same shell company, the same name. This is insane, Marcus half shouted, looking at the lawyers. She's delirious. This is a fabrication. Arthur, you're bringing in a waitress to make these fantasies. Security. Security is busy, Arthur said calmly. You have no proof, Marcus yelled, his mask of sympathy shattering, revealing the snarling rage beneath. Crimson Tide is a legitimate creditor. I have the paperwork. I have the bond note. Yes, you do, Alara said. But we have the origin. We have the Bank of Valletta. We have the $75,000 payment to your proxy, Constantinu and Sons, and we have your Stanford application essay. Marcus Vance froze. His entire body went rigid. Alara recited from memory. A formative experience. How you learn to navigate complex systems by creating an off-book entity to manage your father's rowing team. An entity you named the Crimson Tide. She let the name hang in the air. And, Alara continued, we have the incorporation documents you attached to that essay. The original 20-year-old document for Crimson Acquisitions, LLC, the exact same company you're now claiming is a $300 million creditor. Marcus looked wildly from Alara to Arthur. He was trapped, utterly and completely trapped. It's a coincidence, he sputtered. It's just a name. It's the same name, the same structure, and the same man, Arthur said. He nodded to the main doors. As if on cue, the doors opened again. It wasn't his security team. It was 2 men and a woman in dark blue suits, identifying themselves as agents from the U.S. Attorney's Office, followed by 2 uniformed city police officers. Marcus Vance, the lead agent said, his voice devoid of emotion. You're under arrest for wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy. The boardroom, once a temple of corporate power, descended into pure chaos. Marcus Vance let out an inhuman roar. You can't do this. This is my deal. You're ruining me. He made a sudden lunge, not for the door, but for the heavy glass water pitcher in the center of the table. He raised it, his eyes wild, aimed at Arthur. Before he could take a step, Arthur's 2 personal security guards, who had slipped in behind the federal agents, had him. They were not the clumsy oafs Marcus had expected. They were professionals. One guard grabbed the wrist, applying a sharp, painful lock, while the other spun him around, slamming him face down onto the redwood table. The thud vibrated through the room. Get off me, Marcus screamed, his voice muffled by the wood. The federal agent stepped forward calmly, cuffs in hand. Mr. Vance, you have the right to remain silent. While Marcus was being cuffed, the lead agent turned to the rest of the room. No one is to leave. All electronic devices on the table now. The high-powered lawyers from Blackwood and Thorne, their faces white with shock, immediately complied. They knew the drill. Lawrence Shaw, the man from Apex Strategy Capital, looked like he was going to be sick. Agent, Shaw said, his voice slick with a new desperate politeness. My firm, Apex Strategy, we are the good faith bidders on this asset. We had no knowledge of any impropriety. The agent gave him a cold smile. I'm sure you didn't. We'll find out just how good faith your bidding was when we subpoena your communications with Mr. Vance. Shaw's face crumbled. He knew, as Alara and Arthur knew, that the discovery process would uncover the emails and texts promising Marcus the CEO position. He was, at best, an unindicted co-conspirator. His deal was dead. The humorless woman from the creditors committee, who had so smugly approved Marcus's due diligence, was now trying to distance herself. We were misled. The committee was presented with fraudulent documents. We are victims here. That will be all, the agent said, cutting her off. Arthur Kensington, who had not moved, finally spoke. The 8 a.m. bankruptcy signing is canceled. He walked over to the fresh 400-page binder, the death warrant of his company, and picked it up. He held it for a moment, then walked to the head of the table where the cuffed Marcus Vance was being hauled to his feet. You know, Marcus, Arthur said, his voice quiet, I was going to sign this. I trusted you. You were like a brother to me. Go to hell, Arthur, Marcus spat. You first, Arthur replied. He turned to the agents. He's all yours. As Marcus was led out, his eyes burning with hatred, he found Alara. You, he hissed. You're a nobody, a waitress. You ruined everything. Alara looked him dead in the eye. She was no longer shaking. She was no longer afraid. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the stained Eight House Cafe apron. You're right, she said. I am a waitress. And I'm the one who caught you. Marcus was dragged from the room, still screaming. The room fell silent again. The lawyers, the creditors, the failed bidder. They all stared at Arthur and this woman in a polo shirt. Arthur turned to them. Kensington Global is not bankrupt. It was the victim of a significant $300 million fraud, which we have just uncovered. He then looked at Alara. This is Ms. Alara Davies. As of 9:01 a.m. today, she is the acting chief restructuring officer of Kensington Global. All books, all accounts, and all personnel will report to her. Her first order of business will be a full-scale independent audit of every division, starting with your firms. The lawyers looked at each other in terror. An audit led by her, the woman who had just taken down a COO with a college essay. Arthur, that's, one of the Blackwood and Thorne partners began. That's what's happening, Arthur challenged. Your firm, Mr. Shaw's firm. You all missed this. You either missed it or you were complicit. Ms. Davies will find out which. You're all on notice. He turned and walked to the door. Alara, my office. We have work to do. Alara took one last look at the room of shattered, powerful people. She dropped her dirty apron onto Marcus Vance's empty chair. Then she turned and followed her new boss out of the room, leaving the wreckage of Marcus's ambition behind her. The news hit the financial world like a shockwave. By 10 a.m., the reporters and satellite trucks that had gathered outside Kensington Tower to cover the company's sad, inevitable bankruptcy were scrambling to rewrite their stories. The narrative had flipped from a tragedy of mismanagement to a high-stakes corporate thriller. Kensington COO arrested in $300 million fraud scheme, screamed the Wall Street Journal online. Billionaire saved at 8:00 a.m. How a mystery woman uncovered the crime of the year, buzzed at Forbes. Inside Arthur's penthouse office, a space Alara had only seen in her wildest dreams, with floor-to-ceiling windows that made it feel like you were floating above the city, the atmosphere was electric. Arthur was on the phone, not with lawyers, but with his PR team. No, I don't want to manage the story. I want to tell it. The truth. A loyal employee attempted to defraud the company. He was caught. The company is solvent. Period. And I want to release one more piece of information. The name of our new interim CRO. Yes, CRO. Alara. Elaradavies. Yes. Her background? She's the best damn forensic auditor in the country. He hung up and looked at Alara, who was sitting on a plush leather sofa, nursing a cup of coffee that cost more than her old daily wage. She was still in her uniform, looking entirely out of place and simultaneously exactly where she was supposed to be. Well, Arthur said, a real, genuine smile touching his lips for the first time. That was a morning. Sir, Alara began, I don't know what to say. CRO, I don't have a suit. Arthur laughed. We can buy you a suit, Alara. I can't buy what you have. That clarity, that integrity. You didn't just save my company. You saved my family's name. I was just doing my job, Alara said quietly, the job I was trained for. No, Arthur said, sitting opposite her. You did more than that. You spoke up. You were a waitress in a diner, and you had the courage to tell a billionaire he was wrong. I was a monster to you when you spilled that coffee. It's okay, Alara said. You were having a bad day. The worst, Arthur admitted, and you turned it into the most important day of my life. Marcus, he was my blind spot. I trusted him. He used my own father's legacy, that old bond note story, against me. He knew I'd be too emotional to see the truth. He relied on that, Alara agreed. He relied on everyone being too intimidated, too specialized, or too complicit to see the whole picture. The lawyers only looked at the law. The creditors only looked at the money. You only looked at the betrayal. I was the only one who just looked at the numbers. A new wave of notifications pinged on Arthur's phone. He glanced at it. The board has unanimously approved your emergency appointment, he said, a note of awe in his voice. And Diana has already executed a preliminary asset freeze on the Bank of Valletta, citing the SDNY criminal complaint. The $300 million, it's frozen. We're going to get it back, Alara, every single cent. The reality of it finally hit Alara. She hadn't just saved a company. She had recovered $300 million. She thought of her father, of the mounting bills, of the care facility that was threatening to move him. The life she had been living, a desperate, hand-to-mouth existence, was over. It had evaporated in the time it took to read a single line item on a ledger. Arthur, she said, her voice thick with emotion, I need to make a call to my father's hospital. Arthur's expression softened. He pushed his personal desk phone toward her. Use this. Take all the time you need. Then I'll have my driver take you to my tailor. After that, I'll have him take you wherever you need to go. I know exactly where I need to go, Alara said. An hour later, Alara Davies walked out of Kensington Tower. The press mobbed her, cameras flashing, shouting her name. Ms. Davies, is it true? Were you really a waitress? She ignored them, her face set. A black Mercedes Maybach pulled up. Arthur's driver opened the door. She didn't go to a tailor. She didn't go to a fancy apartment. She went to the Ight House Cafe. She walked in. The mid-morning rush was on. Flo, the other waitress, saw her, and her eyes went wide. Alara, what? I saw the news. Is that you? It's me, Flo, Alara said. She walked to her locker, took off her coat, and put on her stained apron. What are you doing? Flo hissed. I told Mr. Kensington I had to finish my shift, Alara said, grabbing a coffee pot, and I have a table that never paid. She walked over to table 5. The dirty plates and Arthur's $1,000 bill were still there. She cleared the plates, wiped down the table, and picked up the cash. She walked to the register, rang up waffles, 1 coffee, and put the $1,000 in the register. The rest is a tip, she said to Flo. Split it. I quit. She took off the apron for the last time, folded it, and left it on the counter. She walked out of the diner, got back in the Maybach, and didn't look back. 6 months later, the 40th floor boardroom at Kensington Global was unrecognizable. The dark, heavy redwood table was gone, replaced with a modern, open, U-shaped table of light oak. The atmosphere was no longer one of fear. It was one of focused, electric energy. At the head of the table sat Arthur Kensington. To his right, in the seat once occupied by Marcus Vance, sat Alara Davies. She was also unrecognizable. She was dressed in a razor-sharp, dark blue suit, her hair in a sleek, professional cut. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by a clear, confident gaze. She looked in every way like she belonged. Good morning, everyone, Alara said, her voice clear and commanding. Welcome to the Q3 review. As you know, this is our first full quarter post-restructuring. She clicked a button, and the large screen behind her lit up. 6 months ago, we were facing liquidation. Today, I am proud to announce that Kensington Global is not only solvent, but we have posted a 12% profit growth, our highest in 3 years. A murmur of applause went through the room. By unwinding the fraudulent Crimson Tide debt, Alara continued, we not only regained the $300 million in capital, but we also exposed a half dozen other creative accounting practices Marcus Vance had implemented to mask his long-term siphoning. By cleaning our own house, we've streamlined operations, cut non-essential overhead, and reinvested in our core R&D. Arthur watched her, a look of profound respect on his face. She hadn't just saved him. She had rebuilt him. She had gone through his company with a scalpel, cutting out the rot and saving the patient. After the meeting, Arthur and Alara stood by the vast window, looking down on Central Park. Marcus Vance's trial starts next week, Arthur said quietly. They're offering him 20 years. Apex Strategy Capital is under federal investigation, and Blackwood and Thorne, well, let's just say we have new corporate counsel. Good, Alara said. Justice. And your father? Arthur asked. A real warm smile spread across Alara's face. He's at the best clinic in the country. The new treatment is working. The doctors, they're hopeful. For the first time in years, we're hopeful. That's all I wanted to hear, Arthur said. He paused. Alara, interim and acting are words I'm tired of. The board and I, we'd like to make your position as chief financial officer permanent. Alara looked at him. CFO, I thought you were the numbers guy. I was, Arthur said, but I've learned I'm a better big picture guy. I need someone I trust, someone who will tell me the truth no matter how much it hurts to watch the ledger. There's no one I trust more than you. Alara nodded. On one condition. Anything. We open a new division, the Kensington Davies Foundation, a pro bono forensic auditing service for nonprofits and families dealing with catastrophic medical debt, to help people who are being buried by numbers they can't understand. Arthur's smile was as big as the skyline. I love it. Done. He offered his hand. Alara shook it. She was no longer Alara Davies the waitress. She was Alara Davies, CFO of Kensington Global. But as she turned to walk to her new office, she paused. On the wall, in a simple, elegant frame, hung a small, stained polyester apron. A reminder, she had told Arthur, that the most important details are often hidden in plain sight, and that even a nobody can change the world before 8 o'clock a.m. And just like that, the empire was saved, not by a high-priced banker or a cutthroat lawyer, but by a woman everyone ignored. Alara Davies proved that brilliance isn't found in a designer suit. It's found in character, integrity, and the courage to speak up. The Ight House Cafe still serves coffee, but the world now knows its greatest success story. What did you think of Marcus's unbelievable arrogance? Were you cheering for Alara when she walked into that boardroom? This story shows that your past never defines your future, and the person pouring your coffee might just be the smartest person in the room. If you love this dramatic story of justice and secret brilliance, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets us know you want more. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a new story from Ebon Stories. And share this video with someone who needs to see that the underdog can and does win. Comment below. What other stories of hidden in plain sight heroes should we tell next? We'll see you in the next Ebon Stories video.